Tonight, our first presenter is Lisi Calikyan. I met Lisi a few years ago, actually, when we were doing the Advent program, and she graciously volunteered to help us serve the dinner for the Advent program. From the start, I was amazed with the joy and grace that she brings to everything she does for St. Hago community. I'm so proud of her as she brings her enthusiasm, grace, and leadership to co-chair the Women's Guild. Lisi?
Good evening, everyone. When reflecting back on what I should speak about tonight, a few things came to mind. However, the time where my faith was put to the test was definitely in 2017. The Bible verse that speaks to me the most about tonight's theme is that trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely on your own insight. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. As most of you know, I have two boys, Deacon Alexander and Nicholas. In 2017, my son, Deacon Alex, was diagnosed with an advanced case of Crohn's disease. It definitely caught us off guard. He was so sick that he could not continue his studies at the St. Narcisse Seminary. We were left with many questions. Would he be able to complete his studies? This was his dream since he was 16, was to go to the seminary. Would his disease go into remission? How would this affect his future? To start from the beginning, Alex came home for Easter spring break from the seminary about 15 to 20 pounds lighter. However, we didn't think much of it, and neither did he. With his studies, exams, eating at odd hours, we thought that was just the way things were progressing with him. After a few days, the abdominal pains set in, and we immediately had him see a doctor. After several tests, blood work, etc., it was discovered he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. However, we didn't know how severe his case actually was. He began treatment, but unfortunately, with no results. He kept on losing weight and was in so much pain. One emergency room visit discovered he had an abscess and needed to have a surgically implanted drain in his abdomen. After a few more weeks, more specialists, more blood work, more emergency room visits, he had lost a total of 43 pounds. And if you know Alex, he's not a big boy to begin with. Finally, his gastroenterologist was very honest and said, all treatments have failed. Let's go to the next step. We will see a surgeon. He recommended one. We went to see the surgeon, and sure enough, that day, the surgeon said he needs to go straight into the hospital. I cannot even do surgery on him. He has lost so much weight. While we were there at the hospital, of course, Armand and I prayed and prayed and prayed. And finally, a doctor came to us and said, we will have to insert a pick into his arm, just to give him some IV nutrition to get him ready for the surgery. This was exciting news for us, because there was something they could do, the doctors could do, so that he could have this surgery. This was a process. We went home with the pick in his arm. He had the drain in his abdomen, pick in his arm, 14 hours of TPN, which is IV nutrition every day, with the backpack on his back. At this time, I do remember many visits from the bishops, priests, seminarians, all praying with us and reminding us that God is in control and that we will pray for his good health and God will eventually answer our prayers. Just as we thought things could not get any worse, our second son, Nicholas, called us in the middle of the evening. He had a serious auto accident. He had hit a pedestrian. As we went down there, Armand and I started reciting the Lord's Prayer when we saw that accident scene. Eventually, things were better. The victim did have a skull fracture, but he did not pass, which was a blessing for us. We heard several years later that Andrew, that was the victim, is now an NYPD police officer and in good condition. He was the one that was drunk that night and came in front of the car. We had asked Nicholas, had you had a drop to drink? And he said no. And of course they did the tests and they knew that he was not the one that was drunk. He had a witness, he was going the speed limit. This boy had just turned 21, he was out partying, and Nicholas was at the wrong place at the wrong time. But it was a blessing in disguise for this boy too, because it turned his life around. After many months of treatment and 2 major surgeries, Alex did graduate from the seminary and is currently a chaplain for the government, for the military at the Providence, Rhode Island Medical Center, ministering to our nation's veterans. Every time Alex would go to the emergency room or hospital, he would always want to speak to the chaplain. This comforted him very much, and us too. So you see, God writes straight with crooked lines, as we saw in our family in 2017. I am happy to say that both my boys are currently doing well. They are both healthy, and those days are a distant memory. Thank you, and God bless you all.